We won't go into huge amounts of detail, Coley, talking about the weekend again. We've kind of been there and done that. J. Rich Baglow's just been in here talking about just hating losing matches. How do you turn that hatred of getting beat into a positive that will help you in the next game?
Well, you know, it's good to hear that. You know, it's something that drives you on. You know, and there's ways of getting beat. We found a way to get beat on Saturday. Because for 50 minutes I couldn't see them scoring. I could only see us winning or drawing. But you know, the game isn't over 50 minutes. You've got to be on your best behaviour basically for 95 minutes, 96 minutes, whatever you've got to play. You know, them moments then relapse have cost us time and time again this season, that's the law. You know, what people have to realise is there's nobody more upset than Toby about that. You know, people just think it's willy-nilly that you make mistakes and, you know, it doesn't bother you. You know, he came in and apologised to the players straight away, but you know, he's kept us in a lot of games this season, so, you know, I still think he's got credit in the bank. There's no one more disappointed than him. And you have to just accept that happens in football. You see the Tottenham goalkeeper make a similar mistake, and he's probably on 100 times Toby's wages. So.
We talked so much about mistakes and lapses in concentration and those kind of things that are very much out of your control and your staff's control. Is there anything that players can do about that? Is there anything that they can work on to improve that side of it as an individual?
Well, they can keep each other on the toes. And you do that in many different ways, but mainly, you know, by talking and communicating with each other and keeping focused. And sometimes football, when it gets a little bit too easy, especially defending, that's when the mistakes creep in. And I think we've suffered with that quite a lot this season. No mistakes leading to goals when we've not been under the cosh. And perhaps we defend better when we are under the cosh. But you don't want to set out into a game to go under the cosh, so it's a chicken and egg scenario that. But we've just got to keep going, keep believing in ourselves. We know we've got a strong side, we know we've got a strong squad, and we've got to just go and try and put up as many points as we can to the end of the season.
We talked about the contrast between the home form and the away form. Do you actually want another away game now to try and put it behind you and put it right?
I don't mind where we play. I honestly, you know, people say, oh, you play better at home. I think we've got a good side and we're capable of giving anybody a game, and we proved that against the league leaders, rather than, you know, even the most ardent Rotherham fan, but to say that we deserved at least a point. So, we don't fear anyone. We try and win every game we play, and tomorrow will be no different.
Doncaster are down there, right down there. Is that a surprise to you, or does anything surprise you anymore in this division?
Not surprise you in football. Four teams have to make the drop every year, and we're just constantly fighting not to be one of them. That's not easy because there's big clubs in this league. And when you get to the situation Doncaster in, perhaps Crewe and teams like that, is that the fear sort of goes out the window, because it's like, well, sort of now or never, so they can play with an abandon that can sometimes cause you problems. That's what we've got to be mindful of tomorrow.
Do you kind of expect, metaphorically, for them to be just swinging, just going for it, because they're in that situation?
Well, I think they've took the lead the last two games. The last two games at bottom. You know, they've plucked out some great results. Went to Lincoln and won. Went to Sunderland and won. And they can be dangerous. And we've just got to be at our best. And I say this every week. But it's an unforgiving league, and it's even more unforgiving when you make silly mistakes, which we've been guilty of a lot this year.
As far as the management job, something that you've been doing for a very long time, when you're in Doncaster's situation, what are the stresses and strains on the manager like, and are they more acute than they are when you're higher up the table?
Possibly. You know, Doncaster are a decent club, and you know they've played to a decent level. And then you get to the stage where the fans get their expectations increased or decreased, and it's once they get increased, it's very difficult to decrease them. You know, players, fans might feel that Doncaster shouldn't be struggling in the League One. Fact of the matter is, anybody can struggle in the League One.
As far as your team's concerned, you've talked about developing players and bringing them through, and the under-23 setup and stuff like that. We spoke about Toby Savin towards the end of the transfer window being talked about as potentially moving elsewhere. More stories about him at the moment, and Ross Sykes as well. Is that a compliment? Can it distract from the job at hand? How do you help players to deal with that stuff?
You've just got to keep them focused on what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. One of the problems that we're going to see, and we've seen it more with not just our club, but lots of clubs, is players do well for a short period of time, and then they immediately want to go somewhere else because they think they can earn more money, they think they can play for a more glamorous club. It doesn't always pan out, sometimes it does. You've got to be mindful that when you get a player in who you sign, or you sign on a permanent, within 4 games they could be looking to get away or see out the contract, and that's something that's people don't see how hard it is to deal with that, and how difficult the negotiation skills are on that. And you know, to convince people that what we're doing here is good, and it can be good for you further down the line if you get sold. And that's we have to be a selling club, and that's the model that we've got to approach it.
Is that a consideration you have to make when you're looking at signing a player? This sort of tacit, you come and do a job for us and we'll provide that platform for you?
I've got to, but what I don't want is for them to, after 4 or 5 games, think, well, I'm too good for this, because I've shone in the opportunity that I've been given. It's like being on the stage, you know? Like, you know, starting in a West End musical and all of a sudden you've done well, you've got good reviews, now you want to go to Hollywood. It's okay if you get the 2.5 good years, but you can't have players sitting on contracts. And it doesn't work. It doesn't fit our model, doesn't help anybody. You know, Jordan Clark's been probably the only success after sitting it out. But we got 4 good years out of Jordan, so you know, that was a win-win situation on the deal, in my opinion anyway. And you're just constantly looking to improve your players, get them to play better, get them to enjoy the environment they're in, and perform to the level that we want them to.
I'll ask the general personnel question in a minute, but is there an update with Joe Pritchard? Because I know that's one name that is missing still from the sort of equation on a match day that people are asking about.
Joe joined in with a couple of training sessions last week, not full tilt, but he's getting there. And hopefully next time around when he comes back into the fold, he'll be fit and ready to go.
How complicated or straightforward is it dealing with his situation? Because it must be immensely disheartening for him.
It is, and you know, that's trials and tribulations of being a footballer. It's not all plain sailing. And if it was, everybody would be doing it, but you know, it's hard work being a footballer. And you've got to constantly be at your best, or try to be at your best. And you've got to constantly try and get yourself into optimum fitness levels. And through no fault of your own, that can be taken away from you, as has been with Joe. There's nobody works harder than Joe, both on and off the pitch, to maintain his fitness. So sometimes you just don't look at him.
And when he's back in full training, hopefully that's, you know, before the end of the season and he can play a part, how different will the competition be? How different will that squad be since he last played?
Well, that's, yeah, you know, it might take a time to get acclimatised to that. But he's a very, very good player, and everyone knows that.
Anything else new to report? Obviously, Sykes' second game of the ban, isn't it?
But yeah, well, it's final one, yeah. we'll have to monitor the couple got knocks on Saturday. We'll have to monitor them and have to see how Yabs is for tomorrow.